everybody, it's Julie Ebersole for Hero Arts, and I'm so excited because I actually did something I've never tried before, and that is heat embossing on a canvas surface. I've done stamping and painting on canvas, but I've never heat embossed, and I was just curious to see how it would work. So I took this beautiful new image from the Hero Arts 2013 catalog. It's this wise bird, and inked it up with Versamark because that's my favorite embossing ink. And then I sprinkled some Hero Arts white embossing powder on it. I could have used clear, but I really wanted to get a good idea of seeing what I was working with. And so the white helped me see it better. And then I'm just going to use my heat gun to go ahead and melt the powder. And the one thing I noticed was that the embossing powder will absorb into the canvas, but that's okay if it's not a raised effect because it's still going to give you that resist that you need when you color over it or sponge color over the top of it. And then I'm going to take some dual tipped markers. I'm working with the sky blue memento color, and I'm just going to load up the color with my water brush, and I'm starting with a light hand first because it's always easier to add more color than it is to take it away once you lay it down too heavily. So I just started with a light application and then just kept adding and blending in more intense color as I worked. So once I'm done with that, I can go ahead and move on to another color, and I'm going to blot that block dry so that I don't muddy the colors. And I'm going to lay down some of that rhubarb stock marker and again dilute it quite a bit with the water there in the brush and then start applying it. It looks really pale on the block, and then you'll see it's a lot darker than you think on the canvas. So that's just something to be aware of as you're working with this technique. And then I decided it would be fun to distress the edges just a little bit. And so I took my tweezers because I couldn't get a hold of it with my fingers and pulled out some of the threads from the edge of the ATC. And so not a lot, just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of a worn look there. And then I decided I wanted it to have just a little sturdier backing. So I just took a piece of eggshell cardstock. I had a scrap laying there, and I trimmed it down to make sure it was just a little bit smaller than the canvas so it wouldn't peek out or show along the edges. And that gave me a nice sturdy foundation for it to kind of help it keep its body a little more. And then I thought it would be fun to embellish it with a silver eyelet. So I'm just going to use my crocodile there and go ahead and set an eyelet there in that little hole that I punched. And to layer the different, pieces, I wanted to have some contrast and bring in that pretty pinkish reddish color. So I'm using some blush cardstock. I had a scrap strip there, and I just punched it with my little postage edge punch there. And we'll layer that with some 3D dots. I had a strip from the package that was just kind of left over, and it was like, perfect. So I went ahead and put that on the back of my text pattern paper. And one thing I did want to mention is I had to make sure that I had the text right side up so that you weren't reading things upside down. Not that anybody's going to read that tiny print, but if you're like me, it drives you crazy when you see the text upside down. So had to get that on the right way. And then we'll 3D mount that with more 3D dots. This is the powder blue layering paper, and I thought the color was so pretty and a great match to that ink that was watercolored on the bird. And then we'll go ahead and 3D mount the ATC, and I didn't need to put 3D dots in the center of it because it's already supported there in the middle by the popped up pattern paper. So we'll just put some on the top and bottom there to keep it flush at that elevation on the card front. And then it's time to embellish the card with some flowers. And I love these paper flowers because they're blank and you can leave them as is. I love them actually as is, all natural like that, but you can also tint them or sponge them or watercolor them or color them with your Copic markers to tint them, but I decided to leave them au naturel. And then I'm going to add some embellishments like those cool dots. I love those blush dots, and I just used a little tiny glue dot to hold that onto the flower. And then I'm going to mount a button here, and I already threaded it through and did the first part of the knot, and that kind of anchored it for me, so I actually didn't even need to grab my tweezers to keep that tight. And then we'll trim the ends of that twine off, and that's almost it. We're so close to finishing. I took a little greeting from the Heyday Sentiments stamp set. I just love that little banner, thank you. And we'll use the new navy ink. This is such a gorgeous, intense shade of navy, just very rich, love it. and trimmed off the excess there around the edge of the image to make it look like it's, like I stamped it on blue paper, even though I didn't. And then we'll go ahead and mount that with another glue dot. And I'm just going to tuck it under the flower and leave the end kind of floating free. You could even pull it up a little bit, curl it up a little bit for just a little bit more dimension if you wanted to. But that's it. The card's finished. And I don't do shabby chic very much, but this is kind of as close as I'm going to get. And I was really tickled with how it worked out. Thanks for watching.